All right, today we're going to dive into some really powerful ideas from Josh Kaufman's book, The Personal MBA. We're talking about a few core mental models that can totally reshape how you think about business and, honestly, maybe even your life.
So, Kaufman kicks things off with a pretty bold question. The traditional wisdom says you need a fancy business degree to succeed, but that path often leads to a mountain of crippling student loan debt, the kind of debt that you often can't even get rid of in bankruptcy. So you have to ask, is that really the only way?
Kaufman's answer is a hard no. He argues that the real game isn't about collecting degrees. It's about upgrading your mental software, the operating system you use to see the world and make decisions.
He calls these mental models, and we all have them. They're like shortcuts our brain uses to make sense of everything. The problem is, a lot of our models are buggy, or just plain wrong. A real education, he says, isn't about memorizing stuff. It's about finding those flawed models and replacing them with better, more accurate ones. So let's look at a few of the most important ones.
First up is a big one. It's an external truth, a law of the business universe that you just can't argue with. It's called the iron law of the market. This quote from Mark Andreessen just nails it. You can have the smartest people, the coolest product, the best technology in the world, but if nobody actually wants to buy what you're selling, you're toast. Your business is going to fail. The market always, always wins. And the classic textbook example of this? The Segway. I mean, the hype was unreal. It was going to change cities forever. It had millions in funding, brilliant inventors, incredible technology. They expected to sell 50,000 of these things a year. The reality? A total disaster. It was a catastrophic failure. And why? Because for all its cleverness, the market just didn't care. It was a solution looking for a problem. The iron law is absolutely unforgiving. Okay, so if the market is the most important thing, it makes sense that we need to understand the people in that market, right? This brings us to our next model, and we're going deep into the messy, irrational, and fascinating world of human psychology. A huge concept here is something called loss aversion. Basically, study after study has shown that the pain of losing something feels about twice as bad as the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. This is the entire engine behind free trials, by the way. Once you have it, the thought of losing it is a way bigger motivator than the thought of getting it in the first place. The book gives a perfect little thought experiment to feel this yourself.
Just imagine this. Your bank messes up, and suddenly, boom, there's an extra $10,000 in your account. How do you feel? Pretty great. You're on top of the world. It's an amazing day. But then, the bank calls to fix their mistake. They take the $10,000 back. Now, logically, you're in the exact same position you were yesterday. No harm, no foul. But emotionally, it feels terrible. Devastating even. You lost something, even though you never really had it. That pain is so much more intense than the initial joy. And look, this isn't just some fun psychology fact. This is a fundamental law of human nature. People will literally work harder to avoid a loss than they will to achieve a gain. If you can understand that, you can understand everything from marketing and sales to product design. It's that big a deal. So we've looked out at the market, we've looked into the mind of the customer. Now, for our third mental model, we're going to turn the lens around and look at the most important person in any business, you. So often, we think success is all about willpower, just forcing yourself to do the hard work. But Kaufman says that's a terrible strategy. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired, it runs out. There's a much, much better way. You have to engineer your environment. So instead of relying on brute force willpower, the idea is to build what he calls a guiding structure. You basically become an architect of your own environment. You set things up so that the right behavior is easy and the wrong behavior is really, really hard. And the way to apply this is so simple it's brilliant. Want to eat healthy? Just stop buying junk food. Make it so you'd have to leave the house to get ice cream. Need to focus on your work? Turn your phone off and put it in another room. The ultimate example is Odysseus from the ancient myths. He didn't use willpower to resist the deadly siren song. He had his crew literally tie him to the mast. He engineered his environment to guarantee success. That is a guiding structure. Okay, so we've got these models for understanding the market, our customers, and even ourselves, but they're all in service of this bigger goal, right? Success. Well, this last idea, it's a little story from the book that kind of forces you to step back and ask, what does that word even mean? The story goes like this. An American executive is on vacation in this little coastal village.
He sees a local fisherman pulling a few big fish. The exec is impressed, and he immediately starts giving the fisherman advice on how to scale up his business. The fisherman listens and then just describes his day. I sleep late, I fish a little, I play with my kids, take a nap with my wife, and then in the evening, I stroll into town and play guitar with my friends.
The executive kind of scoffs at this and lays out this grand 20-year plan. He tells the fisherman he should fish longer, buy a fleet of boats, build his own cannery, control the whole supply chain, take the company public, and sell his stock for millions and millions of dollars. The fisherman thinks for a second and asks, "And then what?" The executive, so proud of his plan, says, "Well, that's the best part. Then you could retire. You could move to a small coastal fishing village where you'd get to sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, and stroll into the village in the evenings to sip wine and play guitar with your friends."
And the fisherman's simple question just hangs in the air. What are we actually working so hard for? Are we spending our whole lives chasing a future that maybe is already right in front of us? This final model, it doesn't really give you an answer, but it does make you ask the right question. And maybe that's the most important business question of all.